my opinion, this is without a doubt the most underutilized turn in longboarding. It's transformed my surfing for the better, and chances are it can do the same for your surfing. Today, we're going to run through the backhand drop knee turn, including both how to do it and some epic examples from a great logging session I had yesterday. All so that you can understand for yourselves why it's such a critical turn in longboarding, and with that, help develop your own surfing. If you enjoy what we're doing here, please feel free to subscribe or check out the links below. Let's get into it. So let's go through a full run through of how we can do the backhand drop knee turn. The backhand drop knee turn can be broken down into 3 separate phases. The first phase is stepping backwards or bringing our back foot all the way back onto the tail. The next step is actually our lean backwards over the back foot. And then the third step is going to be how we rotate or make the turn and engage that side of the rail. How do we make the turn happen? For the first step, what we want to be doing is making sure we keep our front foot diagonal across the stringer, and then we take a big step back. What I usually see with this is the step is quite small, and then this is where people find that the drop knee becomes quite tricky because they're trying to get a turn that is really molded for a large stance into a small space, which gets quite tricky. So I would say make that stance a bit bigger than you would expect. As you might have seen previously on the channel, we have that concept of doubling it when we have a new maneuver that we're trying, so we can exaggerate it and see how that feels. Definitely apply that to this here. As we bring our back foot back, it's really important that we ensure that the back foot actually stays along the stringer. So we're going to be changing it from the diagonal position across the stringer straight across the stringer. This is really important because this is how we engage our toes properly and effectively on the tail. So the next and probably one of the most important things of the drop knee turn that we must consider is that we do not engage the heel on the board at all. What will instead happen is the toe will actually press into the board and there will be no heel engagement whatsoever. So for that first step, as we bring the foot back, we're going to come into a big stance. Our toe is going to come onto the board first, and that's going to line up exactly straight on with the stringer. The second step here is actually going to be transferring our weight onto the back foot. Now, with this, it's really important that we transfer the weight onto the back foot and we don't simply just drop the knee. This is a common misconception that I find a lot of people take with the drop knee, that they try and bring that knee all the way through to the board. But this actually just inadvertently happens as we rely or bring our weight onto the back foot. So what we want to do, I like to think about adopting a little bit of a soul arch position and just transferring our chest and hips over the back foot, not necessarily dropping the knee low to the board like this. Instead, making sure that we shift our weight over the back foot, and as we shift our weight over the back foot, that knee will inadvertently drop. It's also important to say that we need to, in the start, distinguish between the first and second steps. Too often I see people trying to do all of these 3 steps at once, and this is where things go wrong. So as you're starting out, make sure you bring the back foot back first, keep the weight forwards, and then come into step 2 of bringing that weight over the back foot. Then we can move on to step 3. Now, step 3 is going to be where we actually rotate and make this turn happen. This is where our arms will come important, and this is where we've got to consider, okay, we're actually on our backhand for this turn today. For the backhand drop knee, it always occurs as a drop knee bottom turn. So it won't be something that we're doing off the top of the lip or at the top of the wave. It's going to be used as a way to redirect us from the bottom of the wave across through to the face of the wave so we continue riding down the line. What I like to think about for this is actually opening the arms up wide and then slowly rotating your body in the direction that you want to be going. And this is the third step. If it becomes before the other 2, I tend to find people get a little bit caught up in this. We've then got to think about our leading arm dropping towards the water. I really like to use this as a cue to engage the rail, rather than simply just rotating or simply just trying to put the board on its rail. It's great to use this hand. So for my example, because I'm a goofy footer doing a backhand drop knee on right-handers, I'll be using my right hand. If you're a natural footer on lefts, you'll be using your left. And so what you want to do is actually use this hand to reach out towards the water. If you reach close to the rail of the board, then you won't put the board on rail quite as much. If you reach out even further, then you're going to be more significantly putting that board on rail. So depending on how fast you're going and how big you want the turn to be, you can reach either closer in or further out. All right, so we've got the basics down. Now let's go apply that practically in the water. What we're going to look for is why we're doing the drop knee in the sections that we are, what I'm looking for, and also the different functions and positions that I bring myself to with the drop knee and how this affects the rest of the wave. Hopefully this will enhance your ability to understand how the drop knee works, how you should do it, and also why you're doing it, and how we can think about our decision making on our backhand and utilizing the drop knee to make the most of the wave. So, as we spoke about, there's a few different applications for the drop knee turn, but let's start off with one of my favourites, the drop knee takeoff. The drop knee takeoff is a great way to position yourself tight in the pocket from the start. We can use the arc from the turn to generate speed as we slingshot and find our position in the pocket, which can be a lot more fluent and practical than taking off behind the peak on a longboard to get ourselves in the same position. It's important to bring ourselves into step 1 and 2, these being bringing the foot back and leaning back as we descend the wave, and to engage the rail just before we hit the bottom to come off the bottom with speed. Beyond the practicality of this takeoff to position in the pocket for some epic nose rides, the slingshot effect you get off the turn as you engage the rail right off the bottom goes unmatched. The drop knee takeoff will differ depending on how critical and in the pocket you can get yourself. As we spoke about before, and this will apply to all turns, the less critical and less speed we have, we will need to reduce the extent to which we lean over the rail and how much we put the board on tilt. As we get further into the pocket, like in this example, we can get ourselves so much more over the rail and reach further out with our leading hand over the side of the rail. The other main use for the drop knee turn is using it as a redirect or bottom turn, following a cutback or turn on the wave face. What I love about the drop knee approach here is how quickly we can redirect the rotation of our upper body from the cutback to then come facing down the line. Inevitably, as we shift our back foot position from diagonally across the stringer to going straight along it, it rotates our hips forwards, allowing our rotation from the hips up to face the direction we want to be heading much quicker. This happens to solve a big problem for longboarders and for a lot of surfers in general, where they find on their backhand they're back facing the wave and not rotating towards the direction they want to be going in, which causes a lot of issues down the line. As we become more comfortable with the drop knee turn, we can also bring all of these 3 steps we spoke about before and mold them into one, to quickly transition into and out of the drop knee, which makes it possible in some faster sections. This does provide a decent segue, however, into why we don't always use the drop knee bottom turn on our backhand. First, let me explain what the backhand drop knee solves for us as surfers, and we'll then follow this up with the key problems which may lead us to opt for another turn in some instances. Regarding what it solves, the drop knee turn enables us to quickly rotate our body to face not where we are, but where we're going, which is an extremely important fundamental for all surfing turns. It also provides much needed variety for longboarders on their backhand, where a combination of similar maneuvers is very common. Lastly, I like it as an ode to traditional longboarding, being invented first in the late 1930s by Gard Chapin as a functional way to turn the much heavier, significantly larger boards. But where may the drop knee turn be less suitable? The drop knee turn, as we have previously discussed, is a wide stance turn, getting us to split our stance a fair way. As many of you would have heard me speak about in depth on the channel before, this gives rise to a carving turn, where more of our rail is engaged in the water, which leads to a longer arcing turn, as opposed to a pivot or a quick turn. The wide stance will also provide a bit of a lag time between transitioning our weight from the front to the back foot. As a result, there are some instances, as shown here, where I need to produce a quick pivot turn to quickly redirect in a steep section to avoid getting caught behind the section. In this instance, I might opt for a narrow stance quick redirect. The drop knee also uses the toes rather than the heel. The heel can be important to place more force on the tail more quickly, and so may be a more suitable option for these circumstances as well. Now, let's run through just a few more waves before we wrap things up. If you have any further questions on anything covered today, please feel free to leave any questions and comments down below. I'd love to have a chat about it all. Cheers guys, and see you on the next one.